Hey, spelling class. Miss Amy here. We just had snow/ice/inclementish weather day number 3, and we only had one built in the calendar. So that means of the 12 times we meet for co-op during the semester, we're down to 10. We've missed 2 classes we can't make up. So what our plan is from now on, hopefully we won't miss any more. We're not rearranging the schedule anymore. We did that last time, but at this point, we're keeping the schedule as is. You're going to do your best to keep up with the homework as assigned. I will try to give you any information you need to be able to do that, and we're just going to keep plodding on. So for yesterday, as you see from our schedule, yesterday, which is between 6 and 7, I removed the number from the chart, is prefixes and suffixes and CK or K. So I've posted some files, so ask your parents to go to the Google Drive we use for our class, the spelling class, and there are 2 different sets of files there. They both talk about snow day papers. One doesn't have anything after pages. I think it's just like snow day number 3 pages, and that's just the blank forms of these papers. And the other one is snow day number 3 pages with answers, and that's where I've written in the answers because we're going to talk through some things together today. You might find either set helpful. If you print both of them out, you're going to get a lot of duplicates because not all of them have writing on them. And some of them you already have. Some of them I'm just showing you things or letting you check answers. And it's going to be more than 30 pages. So I'd have your parents open the file and then you just decide, maybe these 5 are the pages I'd like. Nothing in here is required other than when I'm reviewing your homework, which is already required. I'm not assigning these pages as new stuff. They're just there to help you because we couldn't be in class together this week. All right. If you have any questions, your parents are free to text me or email me or whatever. And you guys can text me too if you're allowed to by your parents. Just make sure that's okay with them before you text me directly. Okay. All right. So the first page you will see in either of those Google Drive files is just the new order of weekly topics. This is just what I plan to teach each week. And the one you probably care about more is what your homework is each week. Here it is. So when you come back, we don't have class next week. That's our planned spring break. So I will see you on March 25th. When you come back, bring the homework that you would have brought yesterday on March 11th. That would have been the stuff assigned on March 4th. And then also bring the stuff that would have been assigned on March 11th. That this video hopefully will help overview for you so you'll be able to do all those homework pages. So March 4th was already weird because we'd rearranged things due to the ice day the week before that. But basically, you needed your homophones, meet, and write. And everything else you probably had already gotten done, but if you had not gotten them done before because you waited till we got in class to talk about it, go ahead and finish that up and bring that in so you can get your points assigned, your bonus points. And then for this week, you will do pages 10 and 11 of your homework pages. You'll do the homophones for plane and road, and you'll do the personalized spelling lists for prefixes and suffixes, as well as CK and K. Also in class, we did not finish the worksheet I passed out because of the weird ice day rearrangement, the worksheet that was passed out on March 4th. And I had you guys write down that I told you not to do the back side of the page, and we're going to go over that today. So I do want you to get that done as well. I'm showing you guys the answers. I just want you to write it down to get used to that. So if you remember, that class worksheet is the one that on the front we work together how to do the different plurals, how to make nouns plural. On the back side is where I had you copy down the whole Miss Amy says don't do right now. I want you to do it now. All right, so find that worksheet. If you can't find it, it's right here, the next page. Print out the blank version and copy down these answers as we work through them together. All right, here we go. So we have verbs. Once you learn how to make nouns plural, changing verbs isn't too hard. So first, let's talk about what's called, and you don't have to know why it's called this, but present third person, in fact, third person singular, if you want to be specific. I ran out of space. So when you are talking about the verb walk, you would say I walk. But you say he walks or she walks or the dog walks or it walks, the robot walks, whatever. You add an S to the end of the verb. So let's look through how you would do it for a bunch of different verbs. Walk would become walks. Play becomes plays. March, remember that was one of our hissing words from when we did nouns? Well, look, we add an ES. So it's the same thing with verbs. If the verb hisses, you add an ES. So march is marches. Fold is folds, just add an S. And cry, remember when we had a consonant followed by a Y for a noun, we changed the Y to I and then added ES. We do the same thing here. When it's a verb, consonant plus Y means change the Y to an I, add ES. Okay. Here we have hop, you just add an S. And lassos, that was when you had a consonant followed by an O, you often added ES. And you can do that again. But again, there's so many exceptions in this rule. Lassos can be spelled with or without an E. It's pretty acceptable either way. All right, so that's how we do third person singular. When we want to say instead of I walk, he walks, you add an S, but we still have those exceptions where you'll do an ES for hissing sounds, IES instead of a Y, and ES if it ends in an O, in similar situations to our nouns. Now let's look at past tense. That's when we want to say it already happened. Instead of it's happening now. Present tense is it's happening right now. I walk. I am walking. They walk. Okay. Well, we want to do, no, this happened now, or this happened earlier, a minute ago, a day ago, 5 years ago. I don't know. It happened sometime in the past. So instead of I walk, it's they walked. We add an ED. Okay. So I play, we add an ED, played. March, we add an ED, marched. Fold, we add an ED, folded. Cry, we do have to change that Y to an I, but then we add ED. Okay. Hop is kind of the new weirdo. Hop, we have to add two P's. We have to add a P, so there are two P's, and then add ED. We double that P, because if we didn't do that, it would actually spell hoped. So we have to make sure it doesn't look like it's a word with a silent E and a D on the end. We have to add an extra consonant and double it there. And we're going to talk about that rule in just a minute. And then lasso would be lassoed. So you see there's fewer exceptions for past tense. So when it hisses, we add an ED. That was already the rule, ED. So that's not an exception anymore. We do have to change the Y to an I, but then we add ED. And then we do have to double a consonant. But basically, adding ED for past tense is very standard. Sometimes it's the same syllable. Play, played. Both are one syllable. Sometimes adding an ED adds a syllable. Fold, folded. It becomes two syllables. But the spelling is still just ED. All right. Next page in either of the documents on Google is a summary of the rules that we've already covered in class most recently. These are rules 5 through 8. So here's a second page for you guys. Put that in your notebooks, your binders, under your rule divider. And then we're actually covering a bunch of rules today, so I have another page already to give you guys. These are rules 9 through 12, and actually this one here, the changing rule, is not coming in for another month, but you're going to notice it because we're talking about suffixes so much today, so I wanted to put it up there. You're not responsible for knowing this yet, but I thought some of you might want an explanation as to why things are happening. So we are going to go through each of these examples in just a minute, or these situations. If you needed to check your homework, I tried to catch everything as I awarded you points, but here are the answers if you want to pause the video if you need to check anything. This was from a couple weeks ago. And then also the answers to the plural page. I do want to point out, I try to notice them and write them down, but I don't know if you looked, a whole lot of people actually missed turkey. So just as a reminder, the Y changes to IES is only if Y is the only vowel in that area. So we call it single vowel Y. It might be easier to remember it as consonant Y because it's not going to be two vowels, so there must be a consonant right before that Y. So turkey is EY. That's two vowels, so this rule doesn't apply. We just add an S. So you only change it to an I and then add ES if it's like fly. Fly has an L before the Y, that's a consonant. So I did see several people miss turkey, so you might want to watch out for that. The IES rule only applies if there's a consonant right before that Y. We were going to do this in class together just real quickly to practice identifying base words. I'm just going to skip over that today, but it's here if you want to practice on it. So happily, the base word would be what? It'd be happy. So which of these words also has the base word of happy? Well, this shares a whole lot of letters, hopping, but totally different word. Just happens to look a lot like. Angrily has the same suffix, in the same ending, ly, but the base word's totally different. This base word's angry. This base word's happy. They're opposites. So unhappy has the same base word. So even though these mean different things, because happily has an ly ending that changes the meaning a little, unhappy has a un beginning that changes the word, the base word is the same, happy. This one's a little harder, has a big prefix, trans is the prefix, and ation is the suffix. That just leaves us with port. And it means to move. All right. Port has to do with movement. And so the only word here with port in it is portable, and that has to do with movement. Transportation is moving things from one place to another. Portable is something you're able to pick up and move around, carry around. So these both have portable, it has the same base word as transportation. Transfer has the same prefix, trans. Creation has the same suffix, ation. But we're looking for the same base word, so that would be portable. If you want to try to do the rest of these, I have written the answers upside down at the bottom of the page if you're printing from the with answers version. If you didn't print the with answers version, you can just pop it open and check it. You don't have to print a whole new page. Okay, here's what we were supposed to talk about in class yesterday. What if a word ends in a silent E and then we're adding a suffix to it? That's a group of letters that goes to the end of a word that changes the meaning of the word. Okay? If that happens and the suffix begins with a vowel, we have to get rid of the silent E. We just drop it. If the suffix begins with a consonant, we don't have to do anything. So if you look at our 4 words here based on the adjective safe, the first 2 suffixes, er and est, start with a vowel. They start with E. So we're going to drop the E from safe and then add on the suffix. The next 2, the suffixes ty and ly, those starts with consonants. So that E in safe stays there. We get safer, safest, safety, and safely. Now we're switching to the verb save for this middle column, and we're adding 3 different suffixes, ing, ed, and s. So the first 2 start with vowels. The last one's just a consonant. So for the first 2, you drop the E and add the suffix. And you will notice a lot of these, because there was an E and then another E, it was hard to tell. Maybe you just sort of smushed them together. But when you look at saving, you can see it's the E from save that drops off because the I from ing stays. So you have saving, saved, and saves doesn't need a change because it's a consonant. And then just regular words that don't end in silent E, you just add them together. Jump and ing is jumping, and etc. We also talked about the doubling rule, and we'll go through that again. If a word ends in a short vowel sound followed by a consonant, you double that consonant before adding a suffix if the suffix starts with a vowel. So hop, we double the P, get hopping. Otherwise, it would be hoping. Big, you double the G, add the suffix er, and get bigger. Clap, double the P, add the ed, you get clapped. All right? And the changing rule, again, we're not going to officially go through this till later in April, but whenever a word ends in single vowel Y, so remember, for me, it's actually easier to think of that as consonant Y. Consonant plus Y, you're going to change the Y to an I before adding any suffix except suffixes that start with I, because then you just end up with 2 I's in a row, and that looks weird. Okay, so like for silly, sillier, silliest, silliness, none of these suffixes start with an I, so you change the Y in silly to an I for all of them. Now for muddy, you say you can, like he muddies the water. You got muddies, muddied, muddying. Well, you see here, if we did the changing rule for this, we'd have 2 I's in a row, and that, like I said, looks weird. So we leave it with a Y. If the suffix starts with a vowel, leave the Y alone. Otherwise, in all the other situations, you change that Y to an I. And that explains why when we're doing plural words, we change the Y to an I and we add ES. When we're doing third person present singular verbs, we change the Y to an I and add ES. When we're doing past tense verbs, we change the Y to an I, we add ED. So I wanted to explain this. We aren't responsible for this rule yet, but you start seeing it more and more. And this will help you understand why. And the last thing we covered yesterday, or should have covered, was what happens when you hear a K sound at the end of a syllable or a word. If it has a short vowel sound right in front of it, it's a CK. If it's pretty much anything else, it's a K. And that anything else could be a consonant, like an R, like dark, that'd be DARK. It could be two vowels together, like book, BOOK. Or it could be a long vowel, like rake, and that's RAKE. When you have that long vowel, you usually have to throw a silent E in after the K. All right. And this worksheet will help you practice your two rules, silent E and doubling rule. This worksheet will let you practice those, and the answers are at the bottom, and they're upside down again if you need those. And it just helps you because there's a lot of ifs. See, all the purple is the if, and then the green is the then. So it's not just part of the if has to be true. All of the if has to be true to be able to do the then. All right. So this week was supposed to be about prefixes and suffixes. This is a chart for you that I made of a lot of the common ones. There's a lot more, but these are some of the most common ones. And we can use the prefixes go at the beginning of the word. Pre has to do with before. Suffixes go at the end of the word. Occasionally you will see some small spelling changes, not very often with the prefixes, but more often with the suffixes, especially if there's a silent E or a Y at the end. So that's your silent E rule and the changing rule. You'll see tiny changes in spelling. But we add stuff to the beginning of the word or the end of the word to use the same main meaning, but change exactly how it's being used. So I put together a practice sheet that looks just like your homework, but with different words. And the color scheme I use is if there's a prefix, I make it pink, because pink and prefix start with the same letter. Okay, so here we have the word unchangeable. So un is in pink. The blue word, the base word is in blue, because blue and base start with the same letter. So change is a base word. It's the main meaning, but the prefix and the suffix, they tweak the meaning. Okay? And then the part at the end, the suffix, the part after the word, I put in yellow because I couldn't think of a good color that started with S. So I went with sunshine yellow for suffix. So if you look at unchangeable, and I'm going to scroll back up and look at un and able. Un is my prefix, able is my suffix. So if you look at that, un means not, and able means able, surprise, or capable of. So if I put those together, I have not and change and able, and a lot of times you got to tweak them around. So see, I changed the colors. Instead of pink, blue, yellow, I'm showing you I have to phrase it as pink and then yellow and then blue. So unchangeable, not and change and able means not able to change. All right? So the questions on the worksheet, the first one is if something is not possible, it is this. Okay? So it's just a pink prefix and a blue base word. And not, if you look under your prefixes, you have a couple choices. Actually, you have a whole bunch of them that all start with I, and then there's also the UN. And if you think through those, okay, which have I heard? What goes with possible? Is it ig possible? That just sounds weird, right? Unpossible is not quite right, but close. It's this one, impossible. So impossible is not for the M and possible for the base word. Not possible to change. Or not to change, not possible to happen. All right. If something is done in a manner that is loud, it is done. Okay, so loud is our base word, so you could go ahead and fill that in. Obviously, I have the answer. You can see it here, but what does done in a manner? That's a suffix. So let's look up our suffixes. And ly is done in a manner. Something that's done quickly, it's done in a quick manner. Something that's done quietly, it's done in a quiet manner. So we're going to put ly in here, and that means something done in a manner that is loud is done loudly. All right. What we have left is something that is not regular. Someone who is characterized by playing tricks. So again, in both of these, you can take the base word and fill it into the blue. And then for this one, go look for a pink prefix that sounds right to go here. Go look for a yellow suffix that sounds right to go here in the end. Okay, the opposite of connect, fill in connect and find a prefix that means opposite of. And a person who sings, fill in sing and go find a suffix that means person who. And the answers are down at the bottom, upside down. Okay, this is your homework. There's no answers for this one because that's what you're supposed to be working on. This is your homework to practice the CK and the K sounds. Remember, if it's a CK, if it's a short vowel, pretty much everything else is going to be a K, but it might need a silent E to go with it. Okay. There are a few exceptions that we're not really going to cover, but I just want you to know they exist, is there are some words that end in C. There's a whole lot that are adjectives that are based on other words. You can really easily see. Democratic has to do with democracy. Economic has to do with economy. Scientific, science. Athletic, athletes. Electric, electricity, and so on. Dramatic, drama. There's some others that if you think about it, you can see how basic is related to base and classic's related to class. And then there's just a bunch of other words that might be harder to tell, but public, music, traffic, magic, plastic, topic. There's several. So there are some words that end in C. If you notice, almost all of these that I've given you as examples are IC. There's a few other words like maniac is an AC, but there will be a few exceptions. By far, the most exceptions will be if it ends in an IC ending. And most of those, you're going to be able to hear another word in there. So if there's another word and it's formed from the other word, it very well just might be an IC ending. All right, and the rest of your homework, getting back to that, these are the lists that you're looking for this week. You can do you can be prefix or suffix. I don't care for these words. Just make sure they have a prefix and or suffix in them. Words that end in CK and words that end in K. Your homophones that you should have had for me yesterday are meet and right. That there should be for next time are plane and road. And so these dates are off here, but this is according to the chart. So if I scroll way back to the top and you will check the chart, you see that after the March 4th class, we assigned meet and write, which meant they were due March 11th. And so after the March 11th class, we assigned plane and road, which meant they're due March 25th. So it even confused me for a second when I saw that, but these dates are what's written on what you printed out at the beginning of semester, which is why I left those on mine, but they are off now. So the ones you should be doing are these two. These would have, the ones that say March 4th were due March 11th. The ones that say March 11th are actually due March 25th. And there are chances for bonus points down here. And for those of you who actually listen to all the way to the end of the video, I'm going to give you a chance for 25 bonus points. There is a fourth right. So I've got RIGHT right. I've got WRITE right. And the bonus question I asked about RITE right, I will give you 25 bonus points if you can tell me what the fourth right is and what it means. I'll give you a couple hints, and you're normally not allowed to use parents for bonus points, but I will let you use them for this one. You can talk to your parents. Hint number one is it's not usually its own word. It's usually the second half of a compound word. Okay, it's usually part of a bigger word. The second half that you can tell your parents, they'll probably catch on to this one, is Stratford upon Avon. Okay, that hint will probably let them figure out what the fourth right is. All right. That's it, guys. I will see you in class after spring break. Here's all the stuff we've learned today. I hope you understand it. Again, just let me know if you have questions. You guys can text me. Your parents can text me. You guys know how to reach me. Bye.